Today, we're going to talk through part 4 of my first Q&A series. I'm keen to jump into these questions. It looks like these are the last few remaining questions. I think there's 4 in total to cover everything. If you haven't seen my responses to anything else, please do check out the other videos because some of the questions have been fantastic. I should say all of the questions have been fantastic, actually. I want to say thank you to everybody who dropped a question. And, like I've said in the other videos, if you do want me to answer your question in a video, please drop them down somewhere and then I'll pick it up and basically talk to it in a future video. I want to try and do at least one Q&A a fortnight, if not a month, depending on how many questions I get. But like I said, I'm incredibly thankful that you guys have sort of been willing to sort of ask me these questions and engage with me, because that's, like I've said, the best part of my channel, being able to interact with you guys as the viewers. Now, today's first question is from Who Day Cards, I believe is how you say the name. Will Fanatics 10 times the hobby? Why or why not? If so, will I be priced out of a lot of cards like I was with COVID prices? This one's a really good question, and it's one of those ones where it's like, well, I don't think anybody really has the answer. When they first came in, it sort of raised a lot of concern about what it would mean for the hobby. But, when I'm seeing them talk about wanting to 10 times the hobby in the month since, it seems to be by focusing in on breaking and leveraging their Fanatics app and Fanatics Live and all that kind of thing, and sort of, expand the access to cards to so many more people, which is a little bit scary, right? We want, more people in the hobby, right? Because we want more people to enjoy what we're enjoying. But at the same sort of time, we don't want too many people here, because then it's going to do things like you said. Is it going to push prices up? Is it going to make cards harder to get? But, more importantly, is it going to change the landscape of the hobby to the point where, the cards and the product that are being designed are now targeting these new people that are entering the hobby as opposed to the collectors? Because the collectors, are the focus of the hobby. They're the ones that have made the hobby relevant in the first place. And that's, the concern that I have around whether or not, Fanatics is going to do well for the hobby or not. But to go back to your 10 times the question, I think they will, right? Michael Rubin's a very smart and intelligent man. He's very successful. He's very calculated. So if he's sort of saying that, I think we sort of have to believe him, right? Because the things that he's sort of done to date indicate that he's taking this sort of stuff very seriously. I think it just needs to be clarified a little bit differently. What does 10 times the hobby mean? Now, I don't actually have an answer on that, but I think it's going to be things like breaking and all that sort of stuff, right? There was a recent interview that I heard Dustin and Neo Cards and Comics talk about recently around, Fanatics positioning their app where you can be watching a live game because they own the apparel business now, and they sort of have, the cards and all that kind of thing. You'll be watching a game and you'll be getting notifications as the game's going on. And they're saying that if you see a player on the bench with a jacket on, as an example, you'll get a notification to say, do you want to buy this jacket? Here's how you can buy it, or click here to buy it. And I'd imagine they're going to do the same sort of thing with cards, meaning that, they're going to 10 times the hobby by literally introducing breaking and all that kind of thing to millions of people that are watching this sport all around the world, which is, both exciting and scary at the same time. I think your second part of the question where you say, will I be priced out of the hobby? If that kind of thing happens, you probably will be to an extent, but at the same time, I think Fanatics will be sensible about it, or at least I like to think they will be. And, the things that matter, like game use cards, on-card orders, and all that sort of thing, they've talked about wanting to make that more prevalent again and make it more relevant, like they've done, with those debut patch orders and all that kind of stuff. Now, by them placing a focus on that and then, increasing, the number of customers, that probably is going to price us out, unfortunately. But, where I see things heading is that there's going to be something for everybody, and I'm not sure what that is. It's all speculation at the end of the day, but I just really hope, Fanatics is sort of going to approach this with collectors in mind. Now, people will laugh at that and say they're a, profit business, so they want to basically maximize as much money as possible, so they don't give a shit about collectors. But, the thing that sort of has to stay relevant is, we're the ones that are going to be around regardless of whether or not cards are up or down or anything like that. So I think there's always going to be something like that to sort of be targeted towards us. But, what that looks like, who really knows? It's all speculation at the end of the day. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what it is they're going to do, but that's just my rambling on the whole situation. If somebody has additional thoughts, please drop it down below, because I probably said something stupid or missed something completely. Now, the next question is from Andrew Marks 4640. He says, which will be here first? Sports card prices going back to 2018 prices, or the anti-gravity drive? I think we've got better chances of, the 2018 prices coming back, because I think they're going to come back a lot quicker than what people think. Now, market's sort of coming down and all that kind of thing. And I've sort of said that, stuff is, whilst declining, you can still make good margins and all that kind of stuff. And I stand by that statement. But there's some trends that I'm sort of seeing on social media and on, other content creators' channels and all that kind of thing, where there seems to be a bit of panic setting in. And you've got now people that are staunch collectors say they're now selling. And I'm just curious what that means. Are we going to see a huge sell-off? And, a lot of people speculating from an economy perspective around the world is that, prices and interest rates and all that sort of stuff are not going to be felt properly until, 2024. So could we see a bigger dip then? And I think that's going to be the key thing, because if that stuff does take a tank, right, and the prices do come down on everything, right, not just, sports cards, because we don't really care about pieces of cardboard when we're trying to feed our families, but if all that other stuff happens, we could see 2018 prices very quickly. The one thing I will say to caveat that is, I think the things that'll go back to the 2018 prices, it obviously won't be everything. I think sports cards have now been elevated to a position where the things that are sort of collectible and super valuable are things that collectors actually want to try and chase and all that kind of stuff. So I think those things are going to stay relevant, right? Because they've reached a level now where people can sort of say, that thing is really cool, I want that, right? And it's got sort of some respect on its name and some tangibility behind it, right? It's not just a sports card anymore. It's sort of seen as like an asset, which is a, weird way for me to try and clarify them. But I think that's, where things are. So I think things do go down and do go down pretty far. But, like I explained in a video that was recorded before this one, but it's going to be released before it as well. I don't know why I made that distinction, because obviously it's recorded before, it's going to be released before. But you'll see what I mean about, the wrong sports cards and people sort of being ignorant about the hobby booming again, because, there are certain cards that were bought when people had money that are not going to boom again. So for that same reason, I think we're going to see a lot of prices come down, but not everything is going to go down. The things that will stay will be stuff like game use stuff, the stuff that collectors actually want, the stuff that actually has a deeper meaning, the stuff that is not printed to death. Now, I know that was a really long-winded explanation. I hope it made sense. But again, as with the first question, drop your thoughts down below. If you disagree with me, if you agree with me, or if you just think I'm an idiot, please also let me know down below. Now, the next one is pretty long, so I'll do my best to talk to this without stuttering. The Card Experience 9874. Single-player PCs are the lifeline of the hobby, in my opinion. Nothing I enjoy more than seeing these types of collections. However, do you think these types of collectors going forward will be scared off, not only with the ridiculous pricing these days, but also since the last few years we've had players retire early, get shipped to other leagues, and even make headlines for alleged acts? I know the league will always have things going on, but it just seems to hurt more now than the pricing for single rarer cards are now costing paychecks and are harder to bounce back from. I think 100% you're on the money there, where I think, especially with the modern stuff, you're going to see people hold back off those kinds of things and make people a little bit concerned about what the value will be long term. And I think it's just one of those things where I think you will get people buying modern stuff, right? And I think you're still going to have single player PCs. I think that stuff is still pretty easy to spot on social media. I just think it's going to be delayed, right? Back when I first got into hobby boxes in 2013-14, you were chasing the players you wanted the year the product came out. But prospecting is basically on steroids now, where you can't really do that without, breaking your budget. And even with, veterans and stuff, when product releases, stuff goes crazy. So by being a bit lagged, what I mean is you'll be seeing people, I think, chase 2022, 2023 product very hard, but 3 or 4 years down the line, when the, sheep of the hobby, let's call them that, have sort of moved on from it and then moved on to the, the newer, shinier release and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's sort of where, I see things going, and I think you are sort of seeing people hold off as well. I think the other thing that you're probably seeing people do less of when it comes to chasing PC collections and all that kind of thing is just the print runs and the number of parallels. There's just, there's just way too much, and it's really hard to keep on top of. And it's not just the fact that you have, dozens, if not, 40 parallels in certain sets. You also have the same number of parallels in different products as well. It just gets, far too intense. So I think that, along with the crazy ass prospecting approach, is the reason why you're probably seeing less PC happening when products are actually being released. But I think it's still going to be there, because card collectors are, here for the long haul. We've always been around and we're not going anywhere. I just think it's going to be lagged. It's going to be, 3-4 years down the line, maybe a little bit earlier than that, but you're not going to see it, upon immediate release. And, the messaging you said there around, players doing alleged acts and all that kind of stuff, like we've seen recently with an Australian basketballer who is a total piece of shit, if those allegations are true, because it is totally disgusting. And I hope he gets the book thrown at him. But those are the kinds of things that people need to be wary of as well. And I've talked about this on the channel before. It's not worth, like you said, paying paychecks to buy a card when you don't even know what a guy's going to do. And the same thing goes with veterans too. You don't know what comes up. You see it happen all the time. There's players that I've seen people get tattooed on them here in Australia for rugby league, and then 20 years later after retirement, that player gets done for something, and then all of a sudden you're stuck with that tattoo. It's like you can't, no matter how much you love someone, or no matter how much you sort of followed someone closely and all that kind of thing, you don't know what they're doing in their personal life. And do you really want to sort of be risking your money, paying ridiculous sums of money for something like that to burn you down the line? Because you're talking crazy amounts of money tanking to the floor overnight. And back in the day, that really wasn't a problem because the card didn't cost you all that much. So again, a long rant there, but please share your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, the last question from Lanya Dude 671, another long one, which I'm very thankful for, but please just bear with me as I do read it out. Dan, earlier I commented on your video regarding the Ken Golden lawsuit update, and what I basically said was, I wouldn't be surprised if card collecting ended up being like if someone was trying to sell or to buy a Babe Ruth autographed baseball, where the provenance or lack of one would be a major determining factor for its value. Then he went on about how he felt it would sell for somewhere north of $10 million. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the whole provenance thing. To be clear, I'm mainly referring to rare high value cards. Sorry about the rant. I think that's incredibly important. And Marshall Fogel actually did that interview with Jeff Wilson, love him or hate him. It was a really good interview, and he talked about the story. And at the time, I found it really funny how people like Jeff and many others were all of a sudden talking about the story behind the card in the first place, and essentially the provenance, what you're talking to there, like how it was acquired, what does it mean, why do I collect it, all that kind of thing. And people were shocked by that. And my reaction initially was, what the F are you guys talking about? You're clearly not card collectors or collectors in general, because the story is the reason why we buy things in the first place. The provenance is the reason why we buy things in the first place. That added dimension to the thing we own creates so much more, buzz and warm and fuzzies about owning that thing in the first place, right? The provenance is literally everything. So I think you're on the money by basically saying that we're going to see probably more of that, especially if the prices continue to go where they are, because stuff with provenance is going to, retain more value. The stuff with a better story behind it is again going to retain, better value. And I think when you're talking about provenance, a good spot to look at is comic book collecting, because there are certain collections that get a certain label on the CGC slabs, as an example, if they've come from a certain collection, or they have a certain provenance about them, and collectors do like that and they do chase that. So I think it makes sense for that kind of thing to make things more valuable, because it sort of always has, right? The provenance gives the buyer more comfort, but I think we'll see more of that enter in the card space, especially with modern cards, because people are going to be looking for those differentiators between why this overprinted card is more relevant than this overprinted card, right? And I've talked to that before as well around, buying cards for the stories, buying cards that have deeper meaning. And to give a quick example without repeating myself like I've done in many videos, is buying cards that are from championship winning seasons, buying cards that as a game used patch from a game that you attended, or something along those lines, right? There's stories like that, a player breaking a record, or a player doing something amazing in that particular game that's, imaged on the card. All that kind of stuff goes down to provenance and goes down to the story behind it, and is, the reason why cards should maintain value long term. And I've also talked to that before, because you sort of need that story, you need that provenance, because that's what collectors are going to use to differentiate between the overprinted crap with the stuff that actually matters. So again, a very long-winded rant, but I really appreciate the question. It was a really good one. And like I said with the others, please drop your thoughts down below if there's anything else you sort of want to add to what I said, or you think there's some things that I needed to clarify. But that closes all the questions from the first Q&A video. I've gone through all of them now. I think there was 19 or 20 in total. So again, I'm very, very thankful. Like I said in the others, if you have any additional questions, drop it down in the comments below and we'll talk to it in the next one. By the time you're sort of seeing this, I should be back in Australia from my vacation in Hong Kong and Macau, and you should see some pretty damn cool videos around the card show that I'll be attending, because there's some, pretty cool cards that I want to show off to you guys. And I'm sort of not seeing them yet because I'm obviously still in Australia, but based on what I've seen on social media, I can't wait to sort of record some of this stuff, because you guys are going to have a lot of fun seeing some of the bangers that these guys own. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.